gonna take Cracker Jack timing, Wang.
Total concentration. You ready, Jack?
I was born ready.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and I hope you are ready for all the positivity you can handle about the comic book industry. Obviously, mainstay on the channel, Skip and Tosh is joining me for the Super Happy Comic Book Show. We're basically going to highlight, spotlight all the best things happening within, comic books themselves, comic book community, retailers. If they're doing something great for the community, doing something great for the world, just super happy news. We're going to cover it here each and every week. And this is the first, obviously the maiden voyage of the show. Obviously here with me is my good friend Skip and Tosh. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Every time I get to come on to a stream and talk comics with my main man, Wes, it's a good day. And especially with some of the topics that we have today, I'm personally excited about. And I think it'll do everyone well to sit around the campfire as we have this discussion about some great things that are happening in the comic book community.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to cover a lot of stuff that has to do with comic books and kids. We're going to talk about a great program called ComicBooks For Kids and how they're helping kids in hospitals and cancer centers get comics to them and keep them entertained as they're going through some potentially life-altering situations, keeping keeping some hope up with the kids and the family. We're also going to talk about e-ratic, a brand new comic book. It's our gem of the week. Now, it didn't come out this week, but the issue number 2 comes out next week. I want people to know about it. It's definitely an age-appropriate comic for children. Also, we're going to talk about the Simonsons and their return to X Factor, how excited we are for that. Now, are you ready to talk about comic books for kids?
I can't wait. Let's jump into it, Wes.
So, Skip, this is the website, comicbooksforkids.org. This is a program essentially where comic book professionals, comic book retailers, publishers, they've all kind of working together to get children in children's hospitals and cancer centers comic books to keep them entertained as they're going through life-altering surgeries, the recovery, things like this. This is something I couldn't be more excited about to highlight here on the channel. I think this is really what this show is really going to be all about. What did you think when I sent you this link? How amazing is this program?
It's utterly amazing. Reaching out to people, especially kids, who, are our future in their time of need, in a time of uncertainty, comforting them, giving them stories of encouragement, stories of hope, heroes, overcoming adversity, which is exactly what they're in the midst of. They're in the midst of a fight and they're watching symbols of hope fight through times like that. It's incredible. And it definitely hit a personal spot for me as my grandmother is a breast cancer survivor. It's been in remission for over 17 years now. And although she's not a child, I was a child. I was much younger when she was going through that. So I literally remember being up in the hospital when she got her operation and like me reading comics, even though I'm not the patient there, still, dealing with trauma and having those hopeful icons, be a light and a beacon to us in that time is fantastic. Now to switch that and have it be a service and a ministry for kids is incredible. And I was just like, wow, I have this stack of comics over here that after I read through, if I'm not going to hang on to them, I put them aside for donation. So there couldn't have been a more timely topic for this first episode because I've got a fat donation that I'm ready to just slap down and put some smiles on those little faces.
Now, obviously, if you go to the website, there is a link for donations. And there's going to be a link to this website in the video description if you're interested in supporting this program. Let's just kind of talk about it. This is their mission. It's very straightforward. It is to provide child-friendly comic books to children in hospitals and cancer centers across the U.S., where we can also help in Canada. We will as well. In almost every case, these will come as new comics from many publishers who support us. On occasion, we will also provide unread warehouse overstock. In all cases, we work within the medical facilities, infectious disease policies. So essentially, they're taking comic books from publishers, donations from anyone that will give them. Obviously, retailers are part of this as well. And they're getting these to these children at their most, at their time of need. Just being in the hospital. Me as a kid, I was never in a cancer center, but I was in the trauma ward quite a bit. It just so happens I was a very accident-prone kid. I almost ripped my arm off. I had a compound fracture. I had quite a few things happen to me. And I can tell you right now, my earliest comic book memory as a child, I had fallen out of a treehouse. I accidentally cut my arm on a piece of wood coming down, and I essentially almost ripped my arm off. I could see everything on the inside. When my parents came to the hospital to visit me, they saw me. Both of them within 10 minutes were passed out on the floor and had to be removed by the doctors. That's how bad and gnarly this thing looked. And the first comic I ever received was my mom's best friend from work. Her name was Melissa. She brought me in, I believe it was two issues of SpiderMan, one issue of, what was the other one? It might have been X-Men. It might have been, it was 3 Marvel comics, and I read them probably 50 times over. Now, I lived in a tiny town. We didn't have a comic book shop or access to comics, so I didn't get to continue with the hobby, but it was certainly something that was there that was very special to me at the moment, and I remember it to this day.
Absolutely. I share some very similar things. As someone who had severe asthma when I was growing up, I was in the hospital multiple times, had pneumonia like 5 times before I was the age of 11. Like, it was bad, like bronchitis so many times. I like know exactly how to treat it. So I had similar times where we were just like up in the hospital, just like held up on the breathing machines, like waiting for this stuff to pass. And my mother was nice enough. She knew what made me happy. So comics I had, and when I was strong enough to actually hold them, I could read them. Other times she would read them to me and show me the pictures. So it wasn't cancer, as Wes said, it wasn't cancer, but still traumatic enough, as this is traumatic. And if we can do anything to mitigate that for these kids, this is awesome. I love the part, Wes, also about like the coloring book and all of the different artists that they had in there, Lepresti and Steranko, and just like the legends and the Titans, and iconic images. And now we take kids from taking them into the world and being readers and them escaping through that to opportunities for them to be creators. They have those lovely, beautiful, iconic lines, and they get to take, crayons or markers or colored pencils or whatever, and they get to paint that world, to their liking. So encouraging them to, be co-creators. I mean, what's not to love about this program, man? This is the height of what comics can offer, the culture of the world, and it's just incredible.
Now, if you follow the channel, obviously I love comic books. I think comic books are the best storytelling medium, like in the world, bar none. But I also think there's a healing power to comics. There's a healing power to reading these stories about these heroes that are overcoming such great odds. Certainly to pick up the spirits of kids. Like you mentioned, there is a comic book or coloring book program of many wonderful creators associated with it. That's also in the website. Now, they are partnered up with some other people. I do want to give them a mention to their publisher network. Got some very big names, obviously. We got Marvel, Diamond, Valiant, Archie, O&I Prize. So I think it's great that they're also donating. Now, some of the retailers that I see in here, we've got some heavy hitters. Obviously, that we see My Comic Shop, one of the biggest online retailers. Heroes and Fantasy, that was my comic shop when I lived in San Antonio. Great to see that they're being a part of it. Graham Crackers, Midtown, the Comic Mint. So a lot of wonderful retailers taking part in this program, helping out kids out. Just wonderful stuff right there. There was also another list. Where was that?
Shout out to Cape and Cowl, by the way. That's out here in closer to me in the Bay Area in Oakland. So shout out to Cape and Cowls. I actually just talked to them because I was not too far away from them a few days ago.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's nice to see that all these great comic shops that we all know and love are out there supporting the cause. Now, let's look at this hospital network. I think they said there's over 170 participating hospitals. And when you go through the list, you're going to see a lot of Children's Hospital. A few of them that I'm pretty familiar with. I used to live right next to, I saw it a little bit earlier when I was reading the website, Providence Health. That's in Anchorage, Alaska. I used to live there. I think I also saw Children's Mercy Hospital. That one's in Kansas City, where I grew up. Just shout out to everybody that's supporting these hospitals. If you want to be a part of it, like I said, there is a link in the video description, and they're just really doing great work. so much negativity from time to time associated with the industry. But when you see things like this, you see people going out there and they're not promoting themselves and what they're doing to support all these wonderful hospitals and really do, make a positive influence or affect positive change in these children's lives. But it's wonderful to see how many people are taking a part in it, and hopefully more people do it in the future. Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of say about the Comics for Kids program before we move on to one of the next topics?
Again, just as someone myself now who has 2 daughters, it's just something near and dear to our heart. So just think about it. If you've got, nephews, nieces, cousins, anything like that of young age, just imagine how appreciative you would be, with a service like this, reaching out to them and, just offering some type of relief to everything that's going on. So again, everybody, we urge you as you can, click on the link, find out a way to participate and donate. Even if you don't have money, I'm sure, if you've got extra comics or whatnot laying around, there's a way that we can all contribute to this fantastic program.
Absolutely. My 5-year-old, literally, we're recording this on Saturday. I brought him home from the hospital today. We were in for like a 2-day stay over. He was very sick. We were pretty worried. The protocols have all changed because of COVID-19, getting him in there. He was not in the best of spirits, I can tell you that, but I absolutely did show up with some comic books. I showed up with his Superman comic book that he loves so much. We read a couple of issues of Strange Academy. He loved it, lifted his spirits up, and it's certain to lift any child up if you can help them out. Now, wonderful program. We're not going to be able to top that, but we do have some more good comic book news to talk about, Skip. A legendary comic book creative couple are returning to a legendary title when XMen Legends. Obviously, Walt Simonson and Louise Simonson have worked together on X Factor prior. They had a couple of things that were kind of big introductions as far as the X-Men universe. One of them being Archangel, the other one being, I believe they introduced Apocalypse to the X-Men universe. Obviously, that is an enormous character. It's still kind of driving the narrative as far as X-Men go today. I think it's awesome seeing these two return. Walt Simonson, I think he's in his 70s. And if you've been reading his Ragnarok series at IDW, he has not missed a beat. He is still one of the very best comic book artists in the world. Louise Simonson, obviously his better half, one of the greatest editors and writers in basically comic book history. She was an innovator. She was a trendsetter as far as comic books. I love seeing these two come back to do basically they're going to work on the Apocalypse story. It's going to take place, I guess, in continuity before X Factor 43, after the original X-Men had defeated Apocalypse, and they're going to talk about like the sentient ship storyline in X-Men Legends. I believe it's number 3 coming out in April. What are your thoughts about the Simonsons coming back to do an X-Men Legends comic?
I don't think there is a better couple in comics than Wheezy and Walt. Walt and Wheezy, peanut butter and jelly, eggs and bacon. I mean, put them up there, Wes. Like they are the top of the top when it comes to comics. Extremely charismatic people, like such gracious and nice folks. I was just watching a Chris Claremont X-Men documentary on Amazon Prime, on Prime Video, which I encourage everybody to watch if you haven't gone and watched it yet. It chronicles, Claremont and everything going through, how he got into the X-Men series and all that other stuff. But my favorite part of that whole documentary is easily when Ann Nocenti or as she likes to call herself, Annie Nocenti, which I just think is so cute, and Wheezy show up, and it's them two with Chris. And you could just tell, like you could see the relationship and how they talk and how they treat each other. But I mean, Louise Simonson is still to this day just one of my favorite figures in comics. I grew up like the earliest thing I was familiar with X Factor, but I didn't read a whole lot of X Factor when I was younger. But what I did read when I was younger, what I remember is the Death of Superman stuff. And I know there's a lot of controversy about what it did to the industry, but if we get back to the story and how some things were written in there, her stories in there and what she lined up was incredible. But if we do bring it back again to the X-Men, since that's more topical, the editing, the ideas, how she kept Chris Claremont on task as he would come up with these big brain ideas and these incredible stories, and he'd kind of come to a fork in the road, so to speak, and she would loop back around and bring back one of his dangling threads so he could tie it back up. He
always had 200 plot threads that he needed to get back to. And without Louise Simonson, she would always get him back, be like, hey, don't forget this. Like, you've got 150 things that you're going to need to take care of soon.
Exactly. And she would be the hook, that would catch Chris Claremont in the cheek, and pull him back to those things so he could masterfully weave those tales. Her contribution to comics is well documented, but still the appreciation I don't think quite fits the work that she did there. And then, of course, Walt Simonson, we all know his historic run on Thor. Ragnarok has been on my list, Wes. I thank you again for bringing it back up, because every time I'm going through League of Geek on my comics thing and I see another Ragnarok, I'm like, oh, I need to get that.
You will not be disappointed.
I believe you 150%. So to these two, this man and this woman coming back, returning to a child that they creatively gave birth to, as the child has grown, and being able to shape and form it and guide it a little bit more. I don't think there's any X-Men fan that's out there that isn't thrilled about what they're going to be bringing back to the comic book community.
It's absolutely wonderful. I'm loving the idea, obviously, between XMen Legends. We haven't got the first issue yet, but we know Fabian Nicienza, I believe Brett Booth are on the first issue. Obviously, they're on the third. I love bringing these legends back and really honoring them and letting them continue telling their stories. It's just a wonderful tribute to what they've contributed to Marvel Comics, just to comic books overall. And, X-Men, unfortunately, it doesn't just belong to us anymore. It belongs to everybody. And I'm so happy that they're getting back to come in, tell another chapter of their story. And these two, literally, they are gems in the comic book industry. It's so wonderful that they're coming back. They need to be celebrated. I do think Louise Simonson probably doesn't get the credit she deserves for being breaking through some glass ceilings. And Walt Simonson, he basically, if you enjoy Thor and you like what Thor is in Marvel Comics, you can thank Walt Simonson, because it was a lot different before he took over. Absolutely. All right, so let's get to our gem of the week. Speaking of gems, let's talk about our gem of the week. This week, this isn't a new comic this week. It came out at the end of last year, I believe. It is e-ratic. It's from the AWA Upshots kind of imprint within AWA. It's from Kari Andrews. He's done a lot of work on SpiderMan. I think he's done some Thor work as well. He's the writer-artist. Brian Reber, who I think is a friend of yours, so I think you have some type of relationship with him. He is the color artist. This is an awesome series, and issue number 2 is actually going to be coming out this week, so on Wednesday. If you haven't caught this, go get the first issue, go get the second one. Now, this is the thing. We'll get into the story here in a second. I love shared superhero universes. Now, DC's and Marvel have gotten so big, they're almost too big to actually corral them. In there's so many things going on. Now, Upshot with this is creating their own shared superhero universe. It's all kind of spinning out of the pages of, I believe it was called Resistance. I might be wrong on that one. That was like a post-apocalyptic. There was some type of pandemic event that happened and has given rise to these. I can't remember the name that they gave them, but these new younger superheroes. They all have powers. They're just discovering them. This is awesome. This is like a new take on Spider-Man, but there's a little bit of a twist here, Skip. And the twist is he can only use his superpowers for 10 minutes in a day. I like having the restrictions on it because it gives him 10 minutes to go be a superhero and take charge. But then the other, however 100 or 1,000 minutes in a day, he still has to be a teenager. Absolutely. No, I love it. He has to be extremely judicious, with his abilities and when and where and how to use them, and then you throw an extra level of caution and concern on top of that, factoring in, him still needing to conceal his identity and the fact that he has these powers because of the event that spun out of the Resistance with J. Michael Straczynski. He has to keep that under wraps. And again,
then there's all the normal issues that we all deal with as people in this world, especially when we're younger. Family members trying to, make ends meet, being introduced into a brand new school, which is like a brand new world that has its own culture and all these brand new rules. And where do I fit in? And my older brother fits in a little bit better than me, and all these other things. I really, they did a great job. Brian and is it Carrie?
I think it's Kari, but I could be wrong.
Kari. Sorry, Kari. But melding these two things together and bringing about this world, man, I was hopeful, and I at the very least I knew I would enjoy the colors because of Rebirth. But there was so much more that this comic had to offer, and I was really, really, really excited to. I called it intoxicating. You just kind of get in there and you take a shot of this thing, and you just breeze and flow right through it, Wes. It was easy to talk about this particular comic.
Absolutely, and the artist is spectacular. Now, Kari Andrews is a very multi-talented artist. He can do like photorealistic comic book pages, and he can do stuff that's more akin to like Mad Magazine. This is much more cartoonish. It's very exaggerated. Ollie, who's the main character, he is erratic. He's got an older brother that's a jock, but he's not like the biggest nerd in the history of the world. Yes, he comes in there into his school. He is an outsider, but there's a couple of girls flirting with him. He's making an impression, obviously on his first day. But it's such a fun comic, and I do like the countdown clock. You can obviously see it here on the left page that we've got displayed here. As he's using his powers, starts counting down. And he's only got a few seconds left. Hope he's not mid-flight, because that could be very dangerous. And it adds an element of tension to the story. And like you said, he has to. You don't just get to use it whenever you want. You better make sure that you're using your 10 minutes wisely. I'm very optimistic about this new shared superhero universe. I want an alternative to DC and Marvel. Obviously, I enjoy DC and Marvel. We cover them here on the channel all the time. But I want a nice little controlled shared universe, and it feels like we've got the perfect start here. I'm a huge fan of Erratic. It's a 5-part miniseries. This is called the first season. They're planning to come back with more. But I think this is definitely putting their best foot forward. Kari Andrews, you can tell that he loves Spider-Man. This is very much a new take on Spider-Man for the 21st century, I think we're in now. And it's just so enjoyable. The art's fantastic. The character's really enjoyable, or really likable, is what you need in a nice teen superhero.
A few things to highlight again, because we don't want to give too much of the plot away, because we were really encouraging the viewers to go and check out this book. It is worth your time, and it is worth your money. It is put together extremely well. But I love the relationship and whatnot that develops between Erratic and the would-be I wouldn't call it a love interest, but the would-be heartthrob in there. I really enjoyed like the faculty and all of the like very specific like personalities that made up the teaching group inside of the school. And lastly, the heel turn, which I won't speak too much about, but I really enjoyed the heel turn, the way it was set up. I think it was set up quite nicely. I was surprised how well it was done. It wasn't lazy. It was like thorough. It was there. And it was awesome. So yeah, easily kind of keep your eyes out for those things as you go and you purchase Erratic and you read through it. It's just fun, man.
It is a lot of fun. And the cool thing is these are all new powers that all these characters are discovering at the same time. So you're not going to have Erratic's been a superhero for 2 days and he's going to be fighting a supervillain that's been around for 30 years. No, this event just happened within Resistance. It's given rise to these characters with powers. They're all just discovering it, and I think it's going to make a great dynamic for your villains and your heroes, and the character progression that you want within all these stories. Really highly recommend this. This is the gem of the week. You need to check it out for yourself. When you go into your comic shop on Wednesday, get this issue, get issue number 2. You're going to be thanking us. You're going to be in the comments, be like, you guys were right, because we are.
That's right.
All right, Skip. That is going to end the inaugural Super Happy Comic Book Show with Wes and Skip and Tosh. I think we covered a very good program out there, comic books for kids. Hopefully some of the viewers will be interested in donating and supporting the program.
Really excited about that program. Please do what you can to support it as well. And please return, for more of the good comic vibes, great things that are going on in the comic industry. We'll be bringing that to you guys at least once a week. So continue to turn in for the Soupy Habit Comic Book Show. Every Monday. And if you know of a comic book creator that is doing something with a comic series that maybe they're honoring someone, or it's something cool that needs to be spotlighted, or if you know of a retailer that's doing something in the community that needs to be spotlighted, or a publisher, if you know something that's super cool, super positive that's happening within comic books, contact me. DM me on Twitter, DM me or email me. There is my email address is in the video description. I want to hear about these stories. I want to highlight them. This is what we are passionate about. We want to talk about them each and every week. So we definitely want to know, do not keep these things to yourself. Share them with us so we can share them with everybody else.